Almighty. Welcome back, boys and girls. It's your main math man, Miss Shank, coming to you live from Alameda International High School. And in this video, we're going to be kind of going over and reviewing some nice and simple topics. We're going to be talking about some circles. And so you can kind of remind yourself what that looks like on the right-hand side, but we want to make sure that we can define some vocab terms for ourselves first. So in this first little box, it says this. We're going to say the center. The center is going to be the point in the direct middle of the circle. And it says all lengths from this point to the edge are equal. So we're talking about this point directly in the middle is going to be that center. And that's important because we use that center point to define our next two vocab terms. So we're going to say the diameter. The diameter is a line that goes across the entire circle, and it has to go through that center point. So notice how it goes through that center. Again, it kind of cuts your circle in half. Again, it could be any direction, whichever way, but it has to go from edge to edge through the center point. And then we're going to say the radius. The radius is going to be a line from the center to the edge. So we're talking about from the center just to this edge on the side. So make sure you're seeing that these are two different lengths. Also too, we can say that diameter is going to be 2 times the radius, where the radius is going to be the diameter divided by 2. So make sure you're able to kind of switch between those two. Then we're going to say the circumference. The circumference is going to be the length around a circle. So it's basically like the perimeter around the outside of the circle. And then we're going to say the units will be to the first power. For example, if we're saying the circumference is 3 feet, it would just be to the power of 1. So again, we're saying with this outside amount. However, the area is going to be the space covered inside of the circle. So when we're working with it, we're talking about this shaded, the shaded amount inside the circle. Our units will be to the second power. So make sure you're noticing those two different things. Again, circumference is just the units, and then area is going to be the units squared. So I'd read it like this. Let's say, all right, my area would be 3 feet squared, which is read as 3 feet squared, or you could read it as 3 square feet. So be very careful about that. Again, we're talking about a separate type of units. Also too, make sure you can say, all right, pi is going to look something like that. I usually do 2 lines and 1 squiggly to kind of connect it, almost like a wavy table. But it's the Greek letter pi that we use the value 3.14. Again, if you wanted to see it on the calculator, it looks something like this. You'd hit that second button, and then right above the division sign, notice how it has in blue. That means we're going to use that second button, and I hit the exponent button. So I hit second and then exponent, and I have that pi value, which obviously it gives you a larger value, and that does not repeat, does not end, so it's an irrational number. But for us, for right now, we're going to use this value here. All right. So now some formulas to remember with this circle. We're going to say the circumference of a circle is going to be circumference is equal to 2 times pi times r. So if you're given the radius, you can use this formula. Again, notice let me do it like this. Let's say the circumference, again, is going to be that outside amount. So again, notice how it's just 1 line around the outside. And so we're saying that's going to be our circumference. Or you could say your circumference is going to be your diameter times pi. Again, notice how you are able to get the ratio of pi is the same as the ratio of the circumference divided by the diameter. So again, notice if you have that entire length across, or if you just have the half length across, you can find that circumference. However, if you're looking for the area of a circle, make sure you're saying, okay, it's going to be that shaded amount. So it's that inside amount that we cover. And so we're going to say area is going to be equal to pi times the radius to the second power. So again, make sure you're seeing those formulas on the front side. On the back, it says, what did we just learn? Well, we can have some nice simple formulas for ourselves. So we say area is going to be A, we have equals pi times the radius squared. We're going to say circumference, we can say C is equal to 2 times pi times the radius. Or you could say, or you can have circumference equals pi times the diameter. We're going to say R is the radius, and we're going to say D is the diameter. And then we can have pi, again, PI as 3.14. So again, make sure you have those labels at the top, that way you can remind yourself how they work. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do one example for you, and then I'll let you try it out for yourself. So in example number 1, it says find the circumference and the area of the circle. So a couple steps that we're going to do. Again, I like to kind of have it broken apart one step at a time. So the first step is going to be this. I want to say, all right, I want to first label my radius and my diameter. So that way I know, okay, again, notice how these are two different things. They are kind of connected, but you want to make sure they're two different values. So what does it give us in this picture? Well, it's saying the entire length across is going to be 26 centimeters. So that means that our diameter is 26. That means our radius is half of that. So we'd say our radius is 13. Once I have my labels, I can have my formula. So my formula, let's have, what does it say first? Let's find the circumference. So I'm going to just find the circumference. Let's just keep it simple and say I have the diameter, so I can have a formula I have is circumference equals pi times the diameter. I want to substitute in my values for my variable, so I sub it in. Again, we're going to say circumference is equal to pi, so we have 3.14. Again, I use parentheses to show multiplication, so I have 3.14 times the diameter, which is 26. I solve by simplifying, so I multiply here. Again, I do 26 times 3.14 to get my value. So I'm going to say I have 81.64, and I'm going to say centimeters, and that's going to be my circumference. So I want to make sure I have my answer with label, and that's the circumference. Also have to do the area. So if you need to break it apart, I can say area equals pi times the radius squared. I have my formula I want to substitute in, so I have 3.14 times the radius, which is 13. Be very mindful, because if you plug in different values, you will get a different answer. Make sure you're saying radius squared, so I have to have that exponent attached to the base of 13. So again, make sure that you are including that there. Type it in your calculator exactly as it looks. So I have 3.14, I have times 13 to the power of 2. And I want to actually test out, notice how my exponent is outside the parentheses. Let's see if it will give us the same answer. So if I did, let's do 3.14. Again, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. Again, I like to make sure I'm very careful on that. So if we did something like this, if it did 3.14 times 13, and then after that, if I raised it to the second power, it would give me a different answer. So notice how I have a couple different values here. So again, be very careful when you're doing this. So let's actually write it on the inside just to be safe. So I said 13 squared times that pi is going to be 530.66. I'm going to say that's centimeters squared, because we're talking about area. So again, make sure you're saying this is area, where this is circumference. All right. Again, feel free to pause the video at any point in time and ask questions, so that way I can help you out. Again, pause the video if you haven't already. Find that circumference and area of this circle. Again, follow those steps. You want to label your radius and your diameter. You want to make sure you have your formula. So again, maybe you can do circumference and then area on the side. You want to substitute and solve, and then circle answers with your units. All right, so again, those are the steps. Try it out for yourself, be able to check it as well. So again, pause the video, and come back to the next one. All right, so now underneath of that, it has this. Let me make sure it's on there. Okay. It has this. It says in example 2, find the area of a circle with a circumference of 18 pi meters. So what this is telling us is this: I need to find the area, and it gives me the circumference. So it says it says circumference is equal to 18 pi. And what does that tell us? Well, we know that the circumference is this, which, since it gives us this form, we can say, hey, that 18 is going to be our diameter, which means our radius is going to be half of that, so our radius is 9. So you can notice how I can kind of get different parts from that very simply. Then I can say, all right, I need to have my labels, I have my formula. So formula, what am I looking for? I'm looking for area. So I have area is equal to pi times the radius squared. I sub in my values. So I have area is equal to 3.14 times the radius, which is 9 squared. Solve, and so I have A equals, I have let's actually multiply, so 3.14 in parentheses to show multiplication, and 9 squared. Be very careful. A lot of people are going to kind of do shortcuts here and there. Be very careful. Take your time. Notice how I say out my steps as I'm reading them aloud. And I can say, all right, enter. And so I'm going to have 254.34. And what are we doing? We're saying, okay, answer with units. So we have our area is equal to 254.34, and we have meters squared. You could have square meters, you could have m2, or raised to the second power. Any of those would work. I'll read the last one out loud. So it says your turn number 2. So again, make sure you're trying it out for yourself. Find the circumference and area of a circle with a radius of 7 feet. So again, make sure you can get your labels down. Label your radius and your diameter. Have you, if I can spell that correctly, there we go. Labels. Have your formula not only for circumference, so we have circumference is pi times the diameter, but we also have our area as pi times the radius squared. Sub in your values, again, into your formulas, and then solve for those values. And then lastly, have your answer circled with units. So again, take your time, make sure you can pause the video and try this one out for yourself. Otherwise, be sure to ask any questions, and as always, super slam that subscribe button.